Okay, continuing. In my last video, I spent some time talking about the Canaanites, and I'm specifically going to be looking at the Canaanites in this video and in the next couple of videos. I've already demonstrated that I believe that the pattern of judgment that we see in the Old Testament matches or fits within the situations that we see with the Canaanites found in the books of Deuteronomy and Joshua. In the last video, I demonstrated that the annihilation of the Canaanites was a judgment, according to the Bible. And point two, I spent some time discussing who in fact these Canaanites or Amorites, the two words are used interchangeably, who in fact were these people. What I demonstrated using various sources that the people of Canaan were a very warlike culture. They were notorious for innovations in war. They were very violent towards other nations and other people. In fact, the culture that dominated Canaan when Israel began to enter the land, they conquered a previous civilization that was there prior to Abraham, a very advanced civilization, and destroyed that civilization. So these people were very warlike. They were very violent towards other nations. They were very violent towards each other. There seems to be a lot of indication there was a lot of internal violence. At the end of the video, I suggested that their religious practices were very violent as well, and that's where I want to turn my focus to now. One of the things that we should notice about the Canaanites is that the problem is not so much that the Canaanites worship other gods, but the fact that their religious practices or their religious rituals were very, very violent or evil. So what data do we have about their practices? Let's start with the biblical data and then check it against archaeological or extra-biblical literary data. According to the Bible, the list of Canaanite religious practices included child sacrifice, or the murder of small children, at least some of it in fire. You had incest, bestiality. There was some homosexual practices that were part of their religious beliefs, and then cultic prostitution, both male and female. To read about this in the Bible, I would encourage you to look at Leviticus chapter 18, Leviticus chapter 20 verses 1 through 5, Deuteronomy chapter 12 verse 31, Deuteronomy chapter 18 verse 10, and Deuteronomy 23:17. Also take a look at 1 Kings 14:24 and Psalms 106:38, which is actually about Israel, because later on down the road Israel will begin to down the same road that these Canaanites were practicing in their religion when Israel first entered the land of Canaan. Now, one of the things that I would like to highlight real quick is the fact that the Canaanites practiced child sacrifice. Because oftentimes in discussions surrounding these issues of genocide in the Bible, murder and so forth, skeptics seem to leave out the fact that the Canaanites murdered their own children. I'm glad that the skeptics are so concerned for the Canaanite children, because apparently the Canaanites didn't share in the same concern. And oh, by the way, the Canaanites were also known for sacrificing the children of their neighbors, something I'm sure Israel had to be aware of and were concerned with as they moved into Canaan. Let's see if the extra biblical data supports the biblical material. First of all, in dealing with child sacrifice, or at least some of it in fire. Sadly, there seems to be some indications that in fact this did take place with the Canaanites prior to Israel being there. First of all, let's look at some scholarly descriptions of the data. First of all, its origin, human sacrifice, must be sought evidently in the Canaanite culture in a broad sense. Punic and Neo-Punic inscriptions contain the expressions, I'm going to try to say this, merk mer and merk diem, and I might put those in the description box. Very broadly, these phrases mean respectively offering of a man or reference to the sacrifice of an infant. This inscription is supported by the find in the sanctuary of Didnt at Carthage, where archaeologists have discovered urns containing burnt bones of children. This too is a famous text of Deut Circulus, I believe is how you say that, in 310 BC, when a disaster was threatening Carthage. The inhabitants of the town decided it was due to the anger of Cronus, one of their gods, to whom they had formerly sacrificed their finest children. Instead, they began to offer sickly children, or children they had bought or captured from other lands. Therefore, they sacrificed 200 children from the noblest families. There were a bronze statue of Cronus with outstretched arms, and a child was placed in its hands and rolled into the furnace. Where the details be true or false, the story is evidence of a custom to which other classical authors also allude. These inscriptions or texts are of a late date, but the Moloch offering, the one I just alluded to, again I'll try to put this in the description box, is mentioned in 2 steles from Malta belonging in the 7th or 6th century BC. The sacrificial term has not been so far been found in inscriptions from Phoenicia proper, but child sacrifice was practiced there. A fragment of Philo of Polybius, cited in Eusebius, says that the Phoenicians had an ancient custom where they offered their dearest children in a way of full mystery when danger threatened the nations. The Phoenician history, written by Sanchuniathon and translated by Philo, was full stories about child sacrifices offered to Cronus in times of calamity. These texts furnish the connecting link with the story, and we may mention also the reference to the king of Moab offering his son as a holocaust when his capital was under siege. Let's see, what else do I have here? This is quoting from a history of ancient Israel. The sacrifice of children, then by burning them to death, probably made its way into Israel from Phoenicia during a period of religious synchronism. The Bible mentions only 2 specific instances, and they are motivated by the same exceptional circumstances as the Phoenician sacrifices. Ahaz made his son pass through the fire, 2 Kings 16:3, during the Syro war, and Manasseh did the same in 2 Kings 21:6 when confronted with some Assyrian threat, which is not mentioned in the book of Kings, but which is alluded to in 2 Chronicles 33. Yet the custom must have been fairly widespread to have deserved the condemnations uttered by Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and the prophets. Though Phoenician texts properly so-called do not mention the word, it's possible that sacrifice was called Moic in Phoenician as in Carthage, and it came into Israel under the same name. Quoting here from the peoples of the Old Testament, archaeological evidence is firm and growing. Child sacrifice or burial grounds are called Tophet in the literature, and they occur throughout Palestine and Phoenician empires. There's descriptions of a monument depicting child sacrifice according to the history of ancient Palestine. The archaeological excavations at Punic show a monument with a ritual scene with a god with an animal head on a throne and a table in front of him. He holds in one hand a pig lying on its back, and in the other hand a bowl with the head and the feet of a little child sticking up. He holds in this bowl in front of him his mouth. To the right there are another bowl and a god with an animal head holding a knife in his right hand above the bowl, ready to slaughter the child. The scene shows both animal and child sacrifice as food for the gods. New sites recently found in Gezer, Tyre, and numerous high places show evidence of child sacrifice according to the peoples of the Old Testament. These child sacrifices were practiced not only during religious ceremonies, but also during times of crisis and dedication of offerings at the buildings of cities and houses. Again, from the peoples of the Old Testament. And notice that unlike so many other horrible practices such as sorcery of the Canaanites, this was not widely shared by the ancient Near Eastern cultures. It was a rarity. This evil was specifically Canaanite and Amorite. I'm going to stop there.